Hey everyone, I'm Alex. Welcome to Motive English. Quick question. Do you ever get confused about whether to say make a cake or do homework? Don't worry, you're not alone. Today, I'll show you exactly when to use make and do in English so you can speak confidently and sound natural. Let's get started. Do you ever get confused about whether to say make a cake or do homework? Don't worry, you're not alone. Many English learners struggle with the difference between make and do because in some languages, the same word is used for both actions. But in English, using the wrong word can change the meaning of a sentence or make it sound unnatural. For example, saying I did a cake instead of I made a cake might make native speakers pause. Or if you say I made my homework, it just doesn't sound right. These small mistakes are very common, but they're easy to fix once you understand the rules. In this video, I'm going to help you understand exactly when to use make and when to use do. By the end, you'll not only know the rules, but also remember the most common expressions that use these words. You'll feel more confident speaking and writing English, and those confusing moments will finally make sense. We'll start by looking at the basic rules, then move on to the most common expressions with make and do, and finally, I'll give you some easy tips to remember the difference. Plus, I'll give you a quick practice exercise at the end so you can test yourself. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to use make and do naturally in everyday English. So if you've ever wondered, am I saying this correctly? Now is your chance to fix that. Let's get started. Now that we know why learners often get confused, let's dive into the basic rules of make and do. Understanding these rules is the foundation for using these verbs correctly. In English, make and do are not interchangeable. Each one has its own role, and using the wrong one can make a sentence sound strange or even change the meaning. So let's break it down clearly. 1. Make, creating or producing something. We use make when we are creating, producing, or building something. Think of it as bringing something into existence. Whenever you create something new, whether it's physical, like a cake, or abstract, like a decision, you use make. Here are some simple examples. I made a cake for my friend's birthday. In this sentence, made is used because you created a cake. You started with ingredients and produced something new. She made a mistake on her homework. Made a mistake is an abstract creation. You didn't create a physical object, but a mistake happened because of an action. This is a very common expression in English. We made a plan for the weekend. Here, made shows that you produced a plan, something that didn't exist before. So remember, make equals create, produce, or bring something new into the world. Now, let's look at do. We use do when talking about actions, tasks, or work, things that involve effort but don't create something new. Do focuses on the process or activity itself rather than the result. Here are some simple examples. I did my homework before dinner. Homework is a task or activity. You don't create something new physically, you complete a task. She did the dishes after lunch. This is another task-based example. Washing dishes is an action, not a creation. We need to do some exercise every day. Do exercise emphasizes the activity itself, not something you produce. So the simple rule here is do equals perform an action, complete a task, or work on something. Quick tip to remember the difference. A very helpful tip for remembering the difference is this. Ask yourself, am I creating something? Yes, then use make. Ask yourself, am I performing an action or completing a task? Yes, then use do. For example, I, a sandwich. You're creating a sandwich, so make. I, the laundry. You're performing a task, so do. This tip works in most everyday situations and will help you avoid the most common mistakes. Mini practice. Let's try a few quick examples so you can start practicing. I, a mistake on my test. She, her homework yesterday. We, a new plan for the trip. He, the dishes after dinner. Answers: 1. Made. 2. Did. 3. Made. 4. Did. Practicing this distinction regularly will help it become natural, and soon you won't have to think twice about which verb to use. Now that you understand the basic rules of make and do, let's look at some common expressions with make. These are phrases that native English speakers use all the time, and knowing them will help you speak more naturally. Make is used whenever we are creating or producing something, and many everyday expressions follow this pattern. One very common expression is make a cake. This is literal. You're creating something new. For example, you can say, I made a chocolate cake for my friend's birthday. Notice that you are producing something that didn't exist before. You can also use it in other situations, like she made a sandwich for lunch. Anytime you are preparing or creating food, make is the verb you use. Another important expression is make a decision. Here, make is used in a more abstract way. A decision is something you create in your mind. For instance, you can say, he made a decision to study abroad next year, or I made a decision to start exercising every morning. Whenever you are choosing or deciding something, we use make, not do. We also say, make a mistake. This is one of the most common expressions learners get wrong. A mistake is something that happens as a result of an action, and in English, we always say make. For example, I made a mistake on my test, or don't worry if you make a mistake, it's part of learning. Even though a mistake isn't a physical object, it's considered something that comes into existence, so we use make. Another useful expression is make money. Here, make is used when producing or earning something valuable. For example, she makes money by selling handmade crafts online, or he wants to make money while traveling the world. Anytime you are producing income, make is the correct verb. Now, let's practice a few short sentences so you can start using these expressions naturally. Try to say the sentences out loud. I blank a cake for my mother's birthday. She blank a decision to learn English online. He blank a mistake on his homework. We want to blank money this year. Answers are 1. Made, 2. Made, 3. Made, 4. Make. Notice how in all these cases, make is used because we are either creating something physically, producing something abstract, or earning something valuable. Once you get used to these common collocations, your English will sound much more natural, and you'll start using make correctly without thinking. Some learners also confuse these expressions with do, but remember, if you are creating, producing, or bringing something into existence, it's always make. For example, you would never say do a decision or do a cake. Those sound unnatural to native speakers. There are many more expressions with make, but these 4 are some of the most common and useful in everyday English. You can also try making your own sentences using these phrases. For example, I made a cake yesterday, or I made a decision to study harder. Practicing regularly will help you remember these expressions automatically. By learning these common collocations, you are building your English fluency step by step. Understanding when to use make correctly will not only help you speak more naturally, but also make your sentences more accurate and understandable. Once you are comfortable with these expressions, you'll find it much easier to learn additional phrases with make in the future. Now that we've covered common expressions with make, it's time to focus on do, which is just as important in everyday English. Do is used for actions, tasks, or work, and many common phrases follow this pattern. Learning these expressions will help you speak more naturally and avoid mistakes like saying make homework or do the dishes. One of the most common expressions is do homework. Whenever you complete school or study tasks, do is the correct verb. For example, I did my homework before dinner, or she always does her homework on time. Here, the focus is on the action of completing the work, not creating something new. Another very common expression is do the dishes. This is a household task, something you perform rather than produce. For example, after lunch, I did the dishes, or he usually does the dishes every evening. Again, do emphasizes the effort or activity rather than a result. We also use do in more abstract expressions like do your best. This focuses on effort or performance rather than producing a physical object. Instance, you should always do your best in exams, or I did my best to finish the project on time. This phrase is extremely common, especially in educational or motivational contexts. Another useful expression is do business. This refers to performing work or managing commercial activity. For example, he does business with clients from all over the world, or our company does business in several countries. Notice that here we are not creating something new, we are performing an activity or managing work, which is why do is used. Do is also used in other everyday tasks, like do the cleaning, do the laundry, or do the shopping. These are actions you perform, not creations, so do is always the correct verb. For example, we do the cleaning every Saturday, or I did the laundry while listening to music. Let's practice with some sentences to help you remember these expressions. Fill in the blanks with the correct form of do. I blank my homework yesterday. She always blank the dishes after dinner. He blank his best during the competition. Our company blank internationally. They blank the cleaning every weekend. We need to blank some shopping before the party. My brother blank exercise in the morning. She blank her best to help her friends. I blank the laundry while listening to music. He blank his best to finish the project on time. Answers are 1 did, 2 does, 3 did, 4 does, 5 do, 6 do, 7 does, 8 did, 9 did, 10 did. Notice how in all these examples, do is used because the focus is on performing an action or completing a task, not creating something new. These expressions are fixed phrases, so practicing them regularly will make using do feel natural. A simple tip to remember: if the sentence focuses on the process or effort, use do. If it focuses on creation or production, use make. For example, I am doing exercise emphasizes the activity itself, while I am making exercise would sound incorrect because you're not producing anything. By learning these common expressions with do, you can confidently talk about daily activities, chores, schoolwork, and even professional tasks. Practicing these phrases will make your English sound much more natural, and when combined with the make expressions you've already learned, you'll have a solid foundation for using both verbs correctly in everyday conversations.
By now, you've learned the basic rules and common expressions with make and do. To make it even easier, let's talk about some simple tricks in mnemonics that will help you remember the difference every time you speak or write in English. These tips are easy to remember and will save you a lot of confusion. The first trick is this: make equals something new is created. Think of make as the verb you use whenever you produce, create, or bring something into existence. This can be something physical, like a cake or a sandwich, or something abstract, like a decision, a plan, or a mistake. Whenever you are creating something new, the correct verb is make. For example, we say, I made a cake for my friend. She made a decision to start studying English, and he made a mistake on the test. Even though mistakes and decisions aren't physical objects, they are produced as a result of an action, so make is used. The second trick is do equals activity or work you perform. Do is all about performing actions, completing tasks, or putting in effort. If the focus is on what you are doing rather than what you are creating, then do is the correct choice. For example, we say, I did my homework, she does the dishes, and he did his best in the competition. Notice that in all of these sentences, you are performing an action, not creating a new object or concept, so do is used. To make it even easier, you can use a mental shortcut. Ask yourself, am I creating something new or am I performing an action? If the answer is creating something, use make. If it's an action or task, use do. This trick works in almost all situations and is especially helpful for learners who frequently confuse these verbs. Now let's look at a few tricky phrases that often confuse learners. For example, we always say make a phone call instead of do a phone call. Even though calling is an action, English treats it as a created event, so make is correct. Another tricky one is make a mistake, which is abstract but always uses make. You wouldn't say do a mistake. On the other hand, some phrases may seem like they involve creation but actually require do. For instance, we say do the shopping, do the cleaning, and do the laundry. Even though you might feel like you are creating order or creating cleanliness, English treats these as actions or tasks, so do is correct. Another example is do your best. You aren't producing a physical object, you are putting effort into an activity, so again, do is used. Here's a little mnemonic to remember both at once. Make equals create. Do equals do. It's simple but effective. Make is all about producing something new. Do is all about completing tasks or performing actions. Whenever you are in doubt, ask yourself if the sentence is about creating something tangible or abstract. If yes, use make. If it's about effort or action, use do. Another tip is to practice tricky collocations daily. For example, repeat phrases like make a plan, make a decision, make money, and do the dishes, do homework, do your best. By practicing these over and over, you'll start using them naturally without thinking. Over time, your brain will automatically choose the correct verb. Finally, remember that mistakes are part of learning. Even native speakers occasionally mix these up in unusual situations, so don't be afraid if you slip. The key is consistent practice and paying attention to patterns. Using these mnemonics and tips will give you confidence and make your English sound much more natural. By combining the rules, the common expressions, and these memory tricks, you now have a strong foundation for using make and do correctly in everyday English. With regular practice, these verbs will become second nature, and you'll feel much more confident speaking and writing. Now it's time to put everything together with some practice in a quick recap. This is your chance to test yourself and see how much you've learned about using make and do correctly. Don't worry if you make a few mistakes. That's part of learning. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. Let's start with a short quiz. Try to fill in the blanks with the correct verb make or do in the right form. Say the sentences out loud to get even better practice. I blank a cake for my sister's birthday. She blank her homework before dinner. We blank a decision to go on vacation next month. He always blank his best during competitions. They blank the shopping every Saturday. I blank a mistake on the test yesterday. My friend blank a plan to start a new business. She blank the dishes after every meal. We blank money by selling handmade crafts. He blank the cleaning before the guests arrived. Take a moment to answer each one in your head or out loud. Here are the correct answers. 1. Made. 2. Did. 3. Made. 4. Did. 5. Do. 6. Made. 7. Made. 8. Does. 9. Make. 10. Did. If you got most of them right, that's fantastic. If not, don't worry, you can always practice these expressions regularly until they feel natural. Repetition is the key to mastering make and do. Now let's do a quick recap of the main points from this lesson. First, remember the general rules. Make is used when you are creating, producing, or bringing something new into existence. This can be something physical, like a cake, or abstract, like a decision, a plan, or a mistake. Common expressions include make a cake, make a decision, make a mistake, and make money. Do is used for actions, tasks, or work. It emphasizes the activity or effort rather than creating something new. Common expressions include do homework, do the dishes, do your best, and do business. A simple trick to remember is ask yourself, am I creating something new or am I performing an action? If you're creating, use make.
If it's an action or task, use do. Also, pay attention to tricky expressions that don't always follow logic. For example, make a phone call and make a mistake, use make, even though mistakes aren't physical objects. On the other hand, do the cleaning, do the laundry, and do your best, use do, because they are actions or tasks. To really master make and do, try to create your own sentences daily. For example, say out loud, I made a plan for the weekend, or I did my homework after school. You can even write them in a notebook or comment below with examples of your own. Sharing your sentences will help reinforce your learning and let others practice with you. Remember, the goal is to make using make and do automatic in your mind. The more you practice, the more confident you'll feel. Over time, you won't need to think about which verb to use, you'll just know it. So keep practicing, repeat the expressions you've learned in this lesson, and try using them in your daily conversations. Writing sentences, speaking out loud, and testing yourself are the fastest ways to internalize these verbs. With consistent effort, your English will sound natural, confident, and correct. Finally, don't forget to comment below with examples of sentences using make and do. Try to write at least one sentence with make and one with do. I'll check them and give tips if needed. This is a great way to practice actively and engage with other learners. By reviewing the rules, practicing the common expressions, and using these tips, you now have all the tools you need to use make and do correctly in English. Keep practicing, and soon it will feel second nature.